All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another session. We have Alan and Craig with us today, two esteemed entrepreneurs. For those of you who don't know Alan is a successful entrepreneur, author, and founder of FiberTime, a company that works to bridge the digital divide in Africa by bringing prepaid fiber internet to townships. He's originally from Pretoria, where he studied at Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University and qualified as a chartered accountant with Deloitte in 2002. Since starting his first business in 2003, he founded or funded 21 businesses in the tech industry, including Cellfind, iBurst, Mixit, and Herotel. In 2013, he founded Project Isizwe, a nonprofit organization that brings internet to township schools. He's published over 10 books since 2008, including a national bestseller, Don't Panic, A Global History of Telecommunications. And recently, he's got a great book out that he's published, Life Lessons, How to Fail and Win. I'm really looking forward to reading it. Go check it out. It's probably going to win a few awards. At least that's how it's looking at the moment. He was named as Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum in 2009. He was also included in a whole bunch of top lists, including African Business Leaders in 2014, 2015, 2016, and nominated as 2015's ICT Personality of the Year by IT Web. And he was nominated by Entrepreneur Magazine as one of the top 11 entrepreneurs changing the African landscape. I was not joking when I said I was bringing in the powerhouses of entrepreneurship to get some insights. Thanks for being here, Alan.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Then the other powerhouse, Craig Rivett, is a seasoned entrepreneur with a track record of successfully building software and technology companies that solve meaningful social and community problems, which I love. Growing up in East London, he studied at Rhodes and then UCT, where he completed his master's degree in economics, and then started his career as an economist. Smart guy. 2013, he left his job to join Alan, in starting Project Isizwe, a non-profit organization that provides free Wi-Fi, as I already mentioned. Since then, he founded, co-funded, or funded 9 tech businesses, including Namola and FiberTime. Namola is South Africa's most successful safety app. I've actually used it myself, which is cool. It uses software to aggregate public, private, and community emergency response to help everyone, especially the 10,000 plus households in South Africa who don't have access to private security. Namola facilitates responses to thousands of real emergencies a month, saving lives almost daily. Namola was sold to MultiChoice, which is really cool. He also launched in collaboration with FIFA to help amateur football clubs receive FIFA financial incentives for developing player talent and improve transparency in the sport. And to date, 1 million players have registered in South Africa using their software, facilitating over 3,000 football matches across South Africa on any given weekend. Most recently, Craig was the founding CEO of FiberTime ISP, a company that connects low-income communities to fast internet, as we already know. Thank you for being here, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. You can see our worlds intertwine quite a lot.
Yes, walking in the same space. So today, we're going to be covering sort of 3 key segments: the psychological traits for success, managing stress and avoiding burnout, and balancing business with personal life. So I'm going to be asking Alan and Craig a few questions. They're going to be providing all the value. I'm just the face asking the questions. So Alan and Craig, to kick us off, could you briefly share the aha moment that solidified your decision to become an entrepreneur?
Well, Alan, you can go first.
No, you, Craig, really. You're much better.
So my aha moment actually came from Alan, and I'm waiting for him to bring in the joke that it's Craig, not Craig. So I was working in a job I didn't really enjoy, and I ended up stalking Alan, trying to get him on as a mentor. And he gave me an opportunity that was, quit your job, don't know what you're going to do, come take some risk, and let's go on an adventure. And it was the go on an adventure part that really sold me down the river. And that was it. That was the start of the journey, and it's been an awesome one since then.
Yeah,
It's
maybe
interesting how you
add,
talk about.
just to add to his Craig's story, he forgets to mention how absolutely miserable he was in corporate. I think if Osama bin Laden had asked him to come fly a plane into a building, Craig would have jumped at that opportunity. It wasn't the hardest sales pitch of my life. He was not in a good place.
So it was both a pull and a push that moved you into entrepreneurship, it sounds like.
Yeah, very, very much so.
And for you, Alan, what was kind of the big moment that made you realize, this is something I want to do?
It was 2003. I just returned to South Africa from traveling. I just worked in New York. My wife and I just got married. We'd done some backpacking, seen the world. And we came back and we needed to get a job quickly, needed to make some money. And I was applying for jobs and no one was even responding. I did get one interview. But I think the trigger for me was with that dawning realization that I couldn't get a job, which is why I think most people start their own business.
That's an interesting perspective, because I've heard you say this before, that you couldn't find a job, but you're obviously very driven, very smart, and have achieved a lot. So I wonder, if you had, gone that traditional route of getting a job, what would success have looked like for you if you applied yourself there?
Well, first thing is, when 2003, nobody would have considered me driven or smart, because in the normal mold of life, I wasn't very motivated and I was not very smart. I wasn't I was a C student. I got 50%, I think, for my final accounting exam at university. Just enough to get through, So, and the system doesn't reward that, So, I've managed to find stuff that makes me come alive, and I figured out how to play to my strengths, which compensates for lots of my weaknesses. And I don't think I'm better than anyone else, to be honest. I just have figured out how to just do the stuff that I'm good at, which, takes the load off everything I'm not good at. And then it is, very lucky in life to have partners like Craig and a lot of other partners along the way that could compensate for my own weaknesses.
That's amazing. So learning to play to your strengths is, kind of what led you to pursuing an entrepreneurial venture and finding success there.
No, not being able to get a job is how I became an entrepreneur. Finding success there was about figuring out what I'm not good at, and just process of elimination, and just eventually just landing on the one thing that I'm really good at and only doing that.
That's awesome. I guess that leads to sort of the next question I want to ask is, what psychological or personality traits do you believe are non-negotiable for entrepreneurial success?
Craigie, what do you say?
So I think it's three main ones. It's it's optimism. So you have to accept that you're going to win. There's luck. There's something else in it that means that it's all going to work out okay. So it's optimism. Other one's belief. A lot of what we're doing is often scary, and only those who believe they can move a mountain will. So you got to believe you're going to be able to do it. And the last one, you've got to have energy. So you've got to be action orientated as opposed to sort of sitting back and planning. I do think there's a little bit of balancing perception and reality. So you spend a little bit of time with Alan, there's a lot of very big story that comes with entrepreneurship. And at some point you need to balance the story and question what the reality is. Question the status quo, question your story, that you're not just optimistic, just full of belief. So there is a little bit of a balancing act, but overall optimism, belief, energy.
Alan,
I don't know if you
your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's true. And I think if there's just one thing that you've got to ask yourself before you become an entrepreneur, otherwise you're wasting your time, is how comfortable are you with uncertainty? If you're not comfortable not knowing what's going to happen in the next hour or 2 or 3 or hour, day or month, I don't think this is for you. And there's a book by Jonathan Fields called Uncertainty. There's some very clever guy in America who's actually studied the subject, and he's actually found it to be a genetic trait that some people are more capable of handling uncertainty, and some people aren't, and the majority of people aren't. So, you just need to know where you are on that pyramid, because I think if you go into this kind of cowboy country, which is really what entrepreneurship is, and you can't really handle not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, it's not going to go so well for you. You're not going to have a lot of fun. It's a little bit better to find a more stable environment.
When we think about these personality traits as optimism, dealing with uncertainty, so you obviously spoke there about it to a degree being genetic. Do you think that these are personality traits or psychological traits that anyone can develop? Could you turn anyone into having the entrepreneurial mindset, or is it something you're born with?
I'm going to leave this one to you.
Craig?
I think
No,
I think most entrepreneurs become entrepreneurs because they're forced into it. It's your story. It's most people are building businesses because they have to, and dealing with uncertainty is a result of that. Being genetically able to deal with uncertainty helps, but I think people become entrepreneurs because they have to, and you learn to do it. I think of how many skills I've learned over the last 10 years following Alan around. A lot of it I wouldn't have learned if I hadn't actually done it, if I hadn't been pushed into it.
Alan, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I saw it, and when Craig was talking, I did think about that. The fact that most people become an entrepreneur because they had no choices, and they become successful. So it means maybe there's less of a genetic factor just in terms of uncertainty. But as Craig says, it's a muscle. So even if you're really comfortable not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, you can get even more comfortable. And even if you're really uncomfortable with that uncertainty stuff, you can kind of train yourself to get a little bit better. And maybe the best entrepreneurs are the ones that started with the highest resistance to that, and they had to push themselves to figure out how to become okay, with things changing and moving parts and all of that stuff. So it's definitely a muscle. You can definitely learn all of these things. And in fact, I read all of these spiritual books about written by these gurus in India. And that's actually all they're saying all the time. They're always saying, all of these things are saying, you must take risk. Every day of your life, you must take risk. You've actually got to be going into the unknown every day of your life. Every decision you're faced with, everything you do, you should be taking the path less traveled, which is actually what they're saying is practice the muscle of getting used to uncertainty.
Yeah, I share that feeling. I think maybe some people have a natural sort of genetic predisposition to specific fields, whether that's entrepreneurship or caring or being a soldier. But I think it like a muscle, it's something you train and practice and you develop the skills. As Craig, you mentioned, Alan was in a way a mentor in teaching you some of those skills in the entrepreneurship space, which kind of, in my mind, shows that it is something that you can develop. And I guess this also leads to my next question then around self-awareness is often cited as a critical trait for entrepreneurs. How has it influenced your decision-making and leadership styles?
Alan, you going to go first in this one, or must I lead and you follow again?
I don't mind, really. I'm easy, man. What do you have an answer? I like your answers because then I can figure out what to say after you've said it.
Self-awareness, you change and adapt. It's not a static thing. So I look at how I've developed as a leader over the last few years. It's very different now to what it was 5, 10, even 6 months ago. I was a different person. And you hopefully become more and more self-aware, and that translates to how you manage people, how you lead, and also how you shape your business. But self-awareness is massively important for no other reason other than it makes you truer to yourself, and very often it makes you lean into the things that make you different, and hopefully those give you an edge. How does that sound, Alan? Do you agree on that? Do you want to think about your answer any longer now?
No, that's true. No, look, it's a hard question. It's an easy answer. Of course, self-awareness is important. Just go back to what I said in the beginning. You've got to figure out what you're good at and then just do that. And how do you know what you're good at if you don't know who you are? But I think the real challenge is how do you become self-aware? And what my experience has been is that it's you take risks. You don't find out who you are by never taking risks. You actually only find out who you are by going through the fire regularly. I think you got to get married because your wife's going to tell you, or your husband is going to tell you pretty much every day where you're dropping the ball, which is useful. It can be irritating, but it's useful just to make sure there's a mirror there. And then it's great to have partners that have known you for a long time. Like Craig, for instance, he's one of my closest partners. He's one of the few people that can call me out when I'm taking a step out of line without me getting upset or offended. And that's what's great about old friends and old partners. Like just having people that have known you for a very long time. They're going to keep you grounded and keep you honest. I think if you find yourself doing well in life and then you start trading in your old friends for new friends, you're going to not go down the right path of self-awareness.
Yeah. So that was one of the questions I was sort of like wondering, because self-awareness is obviously so important. And you guys have pointed out how authentic, trustworthy people, romantic partners, and business partners are mirrors that can help you become self-aware. But are there specific practices or things you've intentionally done to help promote self-awareness?
Craig? I don't know.
That's a hard question. I was hoping you'd go into that one.
I can definitely move to another one. But so as an example, I try to journal sometimes, and I find that helpful as a way to sort of reflect on what I've been doing, because self-awareness, as you rightly said, takes practice, and it's easy to kind of become blind to what we're doing well and what we're not doing so well at, unless, we can bump into people who are trustworthy, but even they have their own biases. So how do we improve if we don't know how to assess ourselves?
I think.
Oh, look, sorry, Craig, you can go.
No, you go first.
No, I mean, I can only say what I do, what I try to do, and what I feel is going to work for me. I read a lot of books. I read a hell of a lot of books, and a lot of it's like self-improvement, self-help stuff. And you ask yourself some questions, and you wonder where you go. I read a lot of biographies, business biographies, political biographies, leadership biographies, war biographies, and it's also like you kind of try, seek some similarities, and also you can, for instance, like with a guy like Napoleon, you can kind of see where he went wrong, and then you ask yourself, are you maybe getting a little bit going down that road in terms of ego or overconfidence? And then I wrote a book. I mean, this little book that I wrote, Life Lessons, it was actually an exercise in self-reflection, which definitely improved my self-awareness. At the beginning, I thought I was actually an amazing human being, and I'd never made any mistakes. And all the things that had gone wrong in my life was other people's faults. But when I was actually writing it, I'm like, well, it's actually not true. Like, you can actually see both sides of the story if you're writing it down as though someone else is going to read it. So that was quite a very useful experience for me, just to like reflect and just shine a little bit of light on my own, role in my own journey, rather than, oh, woe is me, everything that bad that happens is somebody else's fault. I mean, it's quite a useful thing to start taking responsibility.
100%. So people can learn from your lessons through reading your book.
Yeah.
If
They can
people
save
have the
themselves
time,
a whole lot of money. I should have read that book when I was 25. I saved a lot of money and fucking pain. Sorry about the swearing.
Don't worry. And I also went on your blog. You suggested some books there that had a big impact on you. So I guess people could go check that out as well. And I find reading biographies or other people's experience, one thing is to learn from your own experience. It's better to learn from other people's, right? So that's interesting. My next question, as Craig prompted for, is around resilience. So how has resilience shaped your journey, and what advice would you give for building it? I'll target you with that one, Craig.
Cool. I'll dive in first. A lot of it's another muscle that you start stretching, and the way you build it is just by showing up. And there's so many times that you don't want to go through the door. You don't want to make that phone call. You don't want to There was a time in my life I ended up sitting around trying to sell, sitting in municipal buildings in random benches, and there's a million places you'd rather be, but you end up having to just sit there and show up. And that's how you build resilience. There's no other way other than just by doing. Get out of bed and go.
Yeah.
And go for it, Alan.
I was going to say, I was always a quitter when I was a kid. When the going got tough, I'd just bail out. And it was only really when I became an entrepreneur, particularly when, my first business, I almost gave up. I tried to give up. I was a year and a half or 2 years in, and I tried to give up. And my partner, Gavin, is the most wonderful guy. He just told me, no, you're not giving up. You're going to stick it out, And he pushed me through, and we ended up making a bit of money, But if it hadn't been for him, I would have bailed. I think a couple of things in my life have made me easier to be resilient. One is kids. I think when you have children, you really you're very responsible, and you can't just throw in the towel. You've got to put food on the table. That's important. And the second thing for me was purpose. And it was only from about 2010 that I started really thinking, what am I doing with my life? And, my purpose became getting everyone on the internet, And that's a lacquer thing. It's like, it almost feels like I'm letting people down if I don't succeed in my business, because I'm going to not help some kid in Kayamandi study online, on the weekend for his exam, or, whatever. It's just, I'm letting people down. There's a purpose. There's a helpful thing about what we're doing, even though we're making money. It's a helpful thing. So, resilience, as much as it's a muscle, a lot of the time you need to kind of put an environment around yourself that makes it easy not to give up. Kids and a purpose are helpful.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it speaks to Simon Sinek's whole, find your why, like what's driving you, what gets you out of bed on the tough days, whether that's some higher purpose or you're doing it because you feel a responsibility for your employees or the people you're serving in the community. And I find that helps me on the tough days when it feels like everything's dark and cold and it's raining and I just don't want to do this thing. And I guess the counter side to that question is, when do you decide to actually stop doing something, stop pursuing it? Because obviously there's a lot of times where it's like, hey, give up, and you need to keep going. But when you decide, oh no, I'm convincing myself to keep going too long, I should give up.
I'll answer this one first, then Craig can give it a go, because it's unfair. I keep giving Craig the first answer, and then I have all this time to chew on really clever answers. In business, my own experience in business is you've got about 2.5 years before you should give up. It's so weird. That is my rule of thumb. So like 2 years, you feel like you shouldn't give up. 2.5 years, give up if you haven't turned the corner. That's completely random. It's a sample of 3, but it works for me if you're looking for something like that. But I think more esoteric is like a certain gut feel. You get this feeling, and this feeling is either a positive feeling or a negative feeling. And when it's a positive feeling, it's a wonderful feeling. You can't see the actual physical financial proof that this is going to be a rocket, but it. You've got this. There's a 10% chance of failing, but you've got this really good feeling that we're actually going to do it. We're going to win. This is going to be a great thing. And there's a day that it happens. It kind of happens literally overnight. And then the other side of it is, it happened to me once or twice as well, where you just realize you're flogging a dead horse. And it's quite a depressing thing. You put a lot of money, reputation, effort, you've got people around. But that day that you realize, okay, this is going to fizzling nowhere. That's the day you got to start winding things up.
I don't have anything smarter to add. There's a difference between quitting and giving up. If you quit, you're not going to win. If you're quitting on something that is going to shoot the lights out, and you just don't have resilience to guard it out, that's very different to there's no future for what you're doing. And there's a realization that what you're building is not going to go anywhere. You shouldn't keep doing it and expect a different outcome. But
that was quite a clever retort, Craig. I must be honest. That's quite good. Nice little distinction there. I'm going to try to use that. I might shamelessly steal that.
I'm pretty sure I got it from your blog, though.
Fuck it.
Someone once told me that.
Look, I don't mind.
Recycling wisdom. Before we move on to the next question, I just want to remind the audience, if they have any questions they'd like to ask, they can just pop them in the comments and we'll hopefully get to them. Entrepreneurship is inherently stressful. How do you recognize early signs of burnout and what steps do you take to manage it? Alan, I'll pick on you.
Yeah, see, it's better if you just do it like that. There's not this awkward thing between Craig and I. I think sleep is the big giveaway. If you're not sleeping properly, then there's something wrong. You've got to do something about that. It's not always just alcohol. It is actually probably a bad relationship in your business, or something's going wrong, or you've got a sneaking suspicion, and it's, you just start verbalizing it properly. And also, you can't go many nights without sleep. It makes you crazy. So it's a massive red flag in my own life. If I started sleeping badly, I've got to kind of do a bit of analysis to understand what's going wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe my one to add to that is, like, when I start dreaming about work, I also think there's something wrong. When it's sort of stepping into a bit of family time and other thoughts, when it's just too much. When I wake up in the morning and I've dreamt about the strat session you're going to have that day, I feel like that may be a little bit too far into your world.
Yeah, 100%. But I mean, and there are ways to manage stress. It's not just you're miraculously not stressful. And I know Craig does a lot of it himself. You exercise every day. Just walk or go for a swim or something. I switch off my phone basically at 6 o'clock in the evening, except for tonight because of you, Dad. And I make sure I'm with my wife, present in the moment. I'd never look at my emails after 6 because, I mean, that's hectic. You can look at an email at 8 at night and you won't sleep for the night. So, I drink a bit of wine, calm my brain down. There's 100 things. Don't eat too much. There's kind of 100 things you can do in your environment, in your routine, that can manage your own stress loads without you having to use willpower.
Yeah. I find the boundaries something that's super helpful for me, switching off the laptop, having set times that you go to bed, and, not trying to overthink and overdo work. But what Craig said about dreaming about work, I started to realize, oh shit, maybe I'm not doing so well. I find that thinking about work occupies so much of my mental space a lot of the time. And sometimes I feel like I just want to shake my head and think about something else and switch off my brain sometimes. Do you guys have specific tips or advice for entrepreneurs that you found particularly helpful for dealing with a lot of stress, other than the ones you suggested already?
You should go this time, Dan.
Come on,
Great.
Here we go. Well done.
Tying back to the sleep, it's trying to go to sleep roughly the same time every night. Don't stay up too late. Don't. If you've got a lot to do the next morning, don't drink all night and party all night. So it's building a little bit of a sleep routine. But related to that, I also don't try sleep in when you've got work to do either. Because a lot of the stress, at least in my world, my mind, comes from not doing something. So if you wake up at 4:30 in the morning and you feel like you've got a long list to do, don't lie in bed for 2 hours before you try and do it. Just get up and get moving. And often I find you reduce stress by action. But lying in bed and dwelling on it, you're going to keep holding it in. The number of times I've got emails from Alan at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know if he's stressed, but I know he's doing something.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for spiritualism. So, not really religion, but more just being aware. And when I read these little books every morning and I reflect and I think about courage and I think about being present, it actually definitely works for me. And also, probably the most useful tool for dealing with stress is thinking back to all the times in your life that you went through stressful moments. And every now and again, I think, oh, you should remember that and that. And Craig and I have been through a couple of vortexes. I mean, there's definitely God. There's definitely someone in the sky, because somebody was answering our prayers, because we went through some tight spots there. And if I thought about how stressful and how much was on the line and those things, and we got through that, it just makes it a little bit easier, when you're going through another little tough patch. And the last thing to say on this is, I was in a shebeen, like a kind of very kind of low income community and outside of PE. A guy called Keith Andrews was the shebeen owner, and he came up and he was talking to us. And it turned out he owned a circus company, or a company that rented equipment to circuses. And I said, Keith, do you have any advice for a young entrepreneur? He says, Alan, I hope you don't mind me swearing, Dan. Is it okay? But I'm just going to repeat. He said, Alan, when times are good, fucking chill. When times are hard, work fucking hard. I'll never forget it. And it's actually true. Don't be stressed all the time. Just, you're going to have your peaks. So when you're going through a good patch, don't feel guilty about taking the half day and spending some time with your kids and playing golf and whatever, There are just times where things aren't that hectic. Just store some, water in your camelback, because when the times are tough, you're not going to have any chance for that.
Yeah. So drawing on those past experiences of success and overcoming challenges helps you manage and navigate the current problem, which goes back to your whole thing of like, you just got to go out there and get experience and try things out. I think our next question also touches on what Craig was saying. And it's, how do you set realistic expectations for yourself and avoid the trap of perfectionism? Craig, you want to take that one?
I think just action. Just get moving, get going, do something new. Two things. One is prioritize a bit of speed. And the second one is try and bring people around you that are better at doing things than you. So find the people that are better suited to try to solve the problem. You can't do it alone. And if you try to do everything by yourself and you try to do everything perfect, you're going to absolutely fail and you're going to stress yourself out. So offload the stress to people who are better dealing with the parts of the business. And related to it is, bring in your partner into what you're doing. Not your work partner, your spouse. It helps you find that balance a little bit. If you chat to your wife, try to chat to your kids. Your kids don't care about it. But talk to your wife about it.
Yeah, your kids will humble you. I think something I struggle with is I try to set high expectations for myself. I want to try achieve a lot, do a lot, and, take action in solving those things. But I often find that, am I overshooting? Am I trying to give myself too much to do and then punishing myself when I don't reach those expectations? So I wonder, as extremely successful entrepreneurs who have done a lot, you've obviously had high expectations. How did you draw a line in the sand for what was unreasonable?
I'm not a good person to ask that question. I don't think you should draw a line in the sand. I just think it's fucking stupid. I think you should dream as big as you possibly can. And you should let people who think that's stupid just ignore them and carry on with life. You should make dreams your master. You can't just live in your head and have a fantasy. I mean, the really hard part is not the dream. The really hard part is understanding what's the first step towards the dream. But having a massive dream is a great thing. And even if it's perfection, it's fine. It's not going to happen overnight. You've got to take the first step to get there and the next step to get there. So, how many people email me and LinkedIn me and say, hey, I want to start a business and what should I do? La, 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 la. And I say, quit your job. Because until you quit your job, you ain't going to start a business because you don't have to. And it takes a lot of guts to take that plunge,
Yeah, it's a big step. And I hear you about setting these big dreams and goals and trying to achieve them. But, they always say shoot for the moon. And if you fail, you end up among the stars. But
it's true. I agree. I like that line. It's a good line. But you may as well shoot for the moon. Don't shoot for the cloud just above the hill. Go for the moon, man.
On this journey of pushing yourself, you obviously have to maintain your well-being. And I wonder if you have specific habits or things that you implement into your day that you found to be successful. Alan, having been for a meeting with you and gone for a walk, you're building physical activity in, which I love, which I've started stealing.
Just
Are there any other cool?
Just to clarify for your audience, it wasn't like romantic. It was, we just went for a walk. We just
Shut down.
yeah. So there's one any misunderstandings.
A business walk. Are there any other sort of habits or things you've built into your day or your work week that help you sort of like maintain that balance?
I got some great habits. My wife makes me a wonderful smoothie every morning. It's a great way to start the day, not a heavy meal. I only drink decaf. I've gone completely off caffeine. It's one of the best decisions I ever made. And the other thing about decaf is actually, if you really are a coffee connoisseur, then you're going to be a decaf person because you're not doing it for the kick. So my energy levels are higher now. I'm less like shaky. I'm more hydrated. Obviously, I try to drink a lot of water during the day. Craig and I both have like regular routines for swimming or running or whatever. I drink wine every single night with my wife. Keeps my marriage healthy. Keeps me calm. So that's what I do.
That's awesome. Craig?
I've got nothing else to add to that, except I don't necessarily agree about the decaf.
Craig's a bit younger than me. He'll get there.
That's why you're looking so tired. You should have some caffeine.
Watch, guys. I promise you, decaf's the next big thing. You heard it here first. See, the difference in decaf is nowadays, the modern day decaf, the process called the Swiss distilled water method or something, there's absolutely zero chemicals. So the old decaf used to actually be poison. So the way they extracted the caffeine, what they were replacing the caffeine was much worse for you. The modern day decaf is like some very clean process. I'm not sure how it works, but it doesn't change the flavor and it takes the caffeine out of it. And it doesn't put anything poisonous in there. And the main thing about decaf versus caffeine, other than the shakes, is it doesn't dehydrate you. So normal caffeine leads to you being dehydrated because your cells get sealed. When you drink water, it just goes straight through your body. You can drink 4 liters of water after having a coffee. None of it gets absorbed. You can't be hydrated. Whereas decaf, the cells remain absorptive of water. So you stay hydrated during the day. That's why decaf's going to win. This was my opinion, but that's what I think. And, if you go to a place like Plato, just down the road here, they make an incredible decaf. It's just as good as a normal caffeinated coffee. So
I never thought I'd be learning about the pros of decaf coffee in the entrepreneurial world, but I'll put it to test.
Life hacks.
Life hacks. I love it. I'm tempted to ask, what hacks should we avoid? But I think that'll open up a whole sort of can of worms because there's a whole range of perspective there, from ice baths to all sorts of things, but we won't go there today. Craig, you spoke earlier about mentorship and its sort of value. So my question is, finding the right mentors can obviously be really transformative for entrepreneurs or anyone. How have you identified and built relationships with mentors, and how do you actively utilize their guidance in your journey?
It's a little bit awkward with Alan here. I'd love to do it without him here, but I think that finding mentors, a lot of it just comes from having the balls to reach out to someone you want in your life. The hard part is also listening to them. I think about how many hard lessons Alan's told me that I've ignored and wish I hadn't. But a lot of it is find the people you admire and reach out, and very often people want to talk. It's very seldom you'd be ignored. But it starts with who do you want to be, and find that person.
Yeah, but I'm very lucky. I've got a couple of really nice, very amazing. And obviously, my father's a great mentor. I've got other great mentors, but I don't think I've been a good maybe coach or older friend or brother type vibe for Craig. Because we're too close in age to actually not be competitors, and I think that's quite important. Like a good mentor is someone that is not competing with you. They don't think in their head, subtly behind the scenes, that this is competition. That me helping this person is going to make this person look better than me, in the wild jungle. So the best mentors I've ever had were all those guys. There was a lady, Jane Raffaelli. She started Associated Magazines. Lynette Finley, she started Finley Properties. Doug Smolin from the Smolin Group. Brian Pretorius, Dennis O'Brien. They're all basically over the age of 55. Sometimes in their 70s and 80s. They're not in the game anymore. They're a little bit in the game, but they're not playing the game anymore. There's no competition. If they've achieved what they want to achieve, no one can threaten them. They're generous, they're experienced, and they just took a liking to me. They took a shine. That's what you want. If you can find a mentor like that, Craig, you should go out there and try to find those people.
I need to find older people.
I find some old people. Go hang out at Cantina Tequila or something like that, and find some gray hair that's not going to compete with you with all that experience. So that's a great way to get a mentor. And how do you get a mentor? I mean, Craig was right. You're going to write a letter or you email someone, but most of the time, the people that found me. They heard of me through Don't Panic, the book, on the email or whatever. There was little things that, because I'd found myself in a high-profile position, someone who wanted to help me could help me because they could find me. It's hard for somebody to find you if they don't know where you are.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think a lot of people want mentorship or want advice, but they feel too shy to ask. And I think just, having the courage to reach out to somebody, and probably going to get a few no's, and hopefully they take a shine to you and give you that advice. And then there's the challenge of what you do with it when they give you that value. Sometimes it can be hard to accept some of the wisdom that comes from experience when you think you're doing the right thing. So I think that can also be quite a scary reality of getting a mentor is, oh shit, I'm doing the wrong thing. And I think there's also a danger in the opposite is that, we're heavily influenced by the people around us. And if we don't have good influences in our life, we can go down the wrong path very easily. So I think there's a huge warning sign there for a lot of people.
That is like the biggest thing there is. I mean, I've got kids and I think about that all the time. I went to a terrible school. I went to a tough school. It wasn't a terrible school. We had nice teachers. There were some nice kids there. It wasn't bad, but our grade in particular, had some scollies, and I ended up in this funny little gang of losers. And they decided that it'd be a great idea we take booze to school on a Tuesday in the morning, get drunk at first break. It's just rubbish. That's just rubbish. I got suspended from school. Obviously, I got busted. I almost got expelled. And it had everything to do with who I was spending my time with. It didn't have anything to do with me or my parents. Look, nothing to do with that. It just had to do with that I was in an environment with scollies. So, if you can think about that, look, with your kids, I'm just paranoid about that. But then with yourself, when you get older in life and you get to choose who you spend your time with, just be fussy. Don't spend time with people that are unlucky. Just stay away from those losers. Don't spend time with people that are going to get that are dishonest. Don't spend time with people that are egotistical, whatever, flash or whatever it is that you don't like. Just don't do it. Avoid those people and spend the time with people that you'd like to, that you aspire towards. It's just that simple. You will become the average of all of those people. It's just my opinion, but my own experience in high school was it's a mistake to go with the wrong people.
So, given the obviously powerful effect of the people you hang out with in your environment, should entrepreneurs or whether somebody's been in a career for a long time and they've only now woken up to, hey, I'm, in my 50s, I want to be an entrepreneur, or they're, some kid 18, fresh out of high school, wants to pursue an entrepreneurial career. Should they be hanging out with a lot of entrepreneurs? Is that something that they should do, or does it not matter?
No, I think it matters. Yeah. I think it matters massively. I think it's actually almost impossible to become a successful entrepreneur on your first try unless you've kind of been inculcated in an environment like that. And I wasn't. I grew up in a corporate environment. My dad is a corporate beast, a legend of business. And I'm very grateful for all the lessons and insight and legacy he gave me. But he wasn't an entrepreneur. He didn't know how to wheel and deal and sell. And I was just lucky. My first business, my partner was a true entrepreneur, Gavin Verigis, one of the greatest entrepreneurs I ever met. And he taught me the tricks of the trade, and I was surrounded in this kind of environment with these wheelers and dealers. So I kind of learned like that through osmosis, I would never have learned that if I was in corporate or in the family that I grew up in. I don't know what you think, Craig.
Absolutely. The more time you spend with people who are building businesses, the more you learn from them. Just that proximity. And you end up, because it's so all-consuming, you end up talking about work a lot. And I find myself learning things from random people who've built other businesses all the time, just because you're spending time with them.
Yeah, I completely agree. Both of you have had obviously a lot of success in your life, personally and professionally. How do you celebrate those successes and remain motivated for the next one? Not becoming complacent. Alan?
I have a wife that tells you to get out of the house when you're under her feet. That's what happens to me. So whenever I find myself in between things, my wife quickly reminds me that it's irritating that I'm paddling around the house. So I don't think it is healthy for anyone to be bored, to be honest. So just get back on the horse and go again. And I just want to say, I've sold a few businesses along the way. The first one I sold voluntarily. The other ones that I were left or sold or whatever, it wasn't voluntary. It just happened, the way things panned out, that, just didn't work. And I don't want to do that. I like the idea of being in the same business for 20 years for the rest of my life with the same email address. So I haven't been successful in that up until now. I'm trying to do that with fiber time now. But, if you can find something with great purpose and a great profit motive that you can stay in for your whole life, why on earth would you ever sell it? Why would you have a break? You can just work until you're 100. And maybe that's the reason an entrepreneur life is the best. If you're in corporate, they're going to make you retire when you're 65. And you're going to live for another 30 years and you're going to be bored out of your mind. You're an entrepreneur, you can do what you love for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I completely agree. There are obviously going to be a lot of people, as I said, who are going into entrepreneurial journeys now. Doesn't matter where they came from. What are some pieces of advice that you wish you had known before starting your entrepreneurial, journey, that you would give as nuggets of wisdom? Craig?
I think mine is don't underestimate the importance of just selling. I think it's easy to become focused on products, easy to focus on the things that are on the periphery, but just go sell. You can't build a business if you're not going to sell. And I kind of wish I'd learned that earlier. A lot of the businesses we've done would have been better if we'd started selling sooner than later. I think that's a big one. And it's just, a fish doesn't jump into the boat without you trying to catch it. So you've actually got to get out and go.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, they don't teach you that at school. I mean, it's probably the most important skill in your entire life to learn, how to sell. And they don't teach you it. But go read my book, bro. Go tell your audience, you beautiful audience out there, go buy my book. There's a whole lot of lessons inside there that I wish I'd known when I was 25. I'd how to be an entrepreneur. So many. So, I mean, infinity. And there's still infinity coming. But I'm just, yes. One thing I'm realizing is that it's a popularity contest. Life is actually a popularity contest. Now, Craig's superpower, that guy over there, is he's extremely likable. He's such a good guy. Like, everyone likes him, the girls like him, the guys like him, everyone wants to spend time with him. It's so freaking irritating. But it's a superpower. So he's likable guy. It's a popularity contest. People want to do business with people they want to do business with. I mean, if there's one thing you want to do to avoid, to minimize your odds of failure, is don't be a dick. It's not that hard, but a lot of people don't know that. If you can just not be a dick, you're going to be okay.
So just generally good social skills, being able to sell, being a nice, likable person will kind of set you up for success is the recipe. And of course, go read Alan's book for more.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great holiday read for a lot of people.
It's going to be amazing. It's going to be the best Christmas present anyone's ever given anyone.
I'm looking forward to it.
Change their lives.
It's going to change your life. It's a game changer. I actually feel like Donald Trump when I speak like this. It's going to be a game changer. It's going to change things. It's going to be a rocket.
The best. The best. I love it. So before we move on to the questions from the audience, I'm curious, what's next for you guys? Can you share a sneak peek into sort of upcoming projects or big goals in your life? Alan, we'll start with
Craig
you.
is doing great. You got to tell them about your stuff, Craig.
So I left Fiverr Time to try to do something else, and entered in a exciting. I'm trying to build a business that's untied to geography. So trying to do something international. It's my first real try at it. But when I left a few months ago, I spent a solid month just sitting at home writing rules for every part of my life. And the main rule was build something in a large market where you've got an advantage that no one else has. And I think we found it, but I'll let you know in the next month or two really what it is. But at some point soon, I'll have proper commitment.
We'll wait excitedly for the news. Alan,
So,
what's next for you?
What's next for me is I'm going to go have a glass of wine with my wife. That's what's next for me. No, I'm only doing Fiverr Time, really. I don't do anything else. That's all I'm doing. I'm going to try to connect everyone to the internet and make money. And if the Fiverr Time doesn't achieve that goal, I'll start another company and try again. So, but I do want to warn you, I am going off in 9 minutes because I'm going to go see my wife for a glass of wine.
Perfect. We have some questions here. We have one from Fungi. I'm from Zimbabwe, and I'm grappling with the idea of getting into entrepreneurship as a country that has 90% unemployment. Ooh. What would be the advice for a Zimbo?
Come to South Africa.
I guess that touches on Craig's comment of, going to bigger markets where there's more opportunity.
Listen, man, I mean, I can't imagine how hard it must be to be trying to get ahead in Zimbabwe, I mean, I can't. Like, it's impossible to give advice from a South African perspective of what it's like there. But there are some basic things for business which are applicable. And that one of them is you got to go where the money is. Don't start a business in an industry where there's not a lot of profit for the other companies. If the existing businesses are not making money, well, why would you start a business to fight over meager scraps? So find like profitable industries like insurance or banking or telecoms. But the same goes for countries, You want to start a business in South Africa, you don't start a business in PE. Start a business in Joburg. That's where the money is. So, I would just literally go to Joburg if I was from Zimbabwe because that's where the money is. And it's going to be hard, it's going to be tough, but the money's there. So at least you've got a chance of slipping into the jet stream.
That's good advice. Even if it's hard to take and implement, it's good advice. We have another one here. Tension between the long-term vision and short-term deliverables splits precious time. How do you guys keep the long and the short in balance? That's a great question.
That's a fantastic question. I'll jump into this one. So you want to use your long-term vision as the destination. So the analogy that we've used before is you're climbing a mountain, you want to see the summit in the distance. So you look up, you see where you're going, and then you look down and you take 2 or 3 steps, and you make sure you look up and you make sure you're on the right path. The long-term vision is the guiding light, but you have to deal with the day-to-day obstacles. So head up, see where you're going, head down, focus on the next 2 steps. But a problem with the long-term vision is also getting bogged down in it. So you don't want to spend all your time planning for what's going to happen in 5-10 years time when what happens tomorrow is the most important. And there are a lot of things that happen tomorrow that you really have to deal with urgently.
I have nothing to add.
I find that I try to set a strategy for, mid to long term and set key objectives that I want to try to do in the short term and then just ruthlessly execute on them. And if it works, cool, you improve and refine the strategy. If it doesn't, you stop, see what's working, what isn't working, and adjust the long term. That's the only way you can do it, because you can't implement long-term things. You can only implement actions now. So that would be my sort of recommendation. We're reaching the end, and it's now time to punt what I do. So my whole thing is about making mental health accessible, teaching people skills and competencies that they can use in their life, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're still at school. And we're trying to take some of the lessons from the brightest people out there and make them accessible. So if you're interested in learning psychological skills, please go check us out, Psyche Innovations, or download our app. And it's been an absolute pleasure to learn from Alan and Craig. Thank you for sharing your nuggets of wisdom and opening your time to our audience. And thank you to everyone else for attending.
Thank you, Dan.
Great to be on your side. Thanks for the call. Dan, you're a bit of a weird guy, but I like you, Dan. And that moustache suits you. It's good.
Thank you. It's for Men's Health Month. I don't think it's going to be a long stay. So if it promotes people to go check out their physical health, it's a win. But I don't think it's going to be staying around. But I'll take the weird guy compliment. Don't want to be like everybody else.
Thanks
so very much for your time, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.